When we're working with our Cisco Catalyst switches, it's really important that we understand how the ports are identified. If we're doing a configuration for a particular port, we need to make sure that we understand what physical port on the chassis that configuration is going to be influencing. If I configure a setting for port 1/0/12, I need to make sure that I know what that port is physically on the switch, so I connect my device into the appropriate port. And the port numbering is going to vary depending on your switch model. I thought we would consider a couple of different switch models. Here is a Cisco Catalyst 3750 series of switch. And the way the port numbering works is we've got three different numbers that identify the port number. First of all, we need to understand that the Cisco Catalyst 3750 series of switch supports a feature called Stackwise. We can connect as many as 9 of these switches together. We can just stack up several switches, and there are connectors on the back of these switches, and once we interconnect them and we form a stack, they can be administered as one switch, one logical switch, even though that stack is made up of different physical switches. For example, on screen, let's pretend that the bottom switch is member 1 of the stack, and then we have members 2 and 3 and 4. Well, that number, the stack member that they are, that's the first number in their port identifier. And this means if you're working with just a single standalone Cisco Catalyst 3750, the first number is going to be a 1. The next number is a 0. When you're working with Cisco devices, this number often represents the slot number in a module. If you insert a module into a modular chassis, and that module has an opening where you can insert some sort of a network adapter, well, that adapter might contain multiple ports, and we need to be able to address that adapter and then the ports on that adapter. But here, we're not dealing with something that's modular. We're not going to be sliding in network modules into a slot, so that second number is going to be a 0. And finally, the third number is the port number. And the ports are conveniently numbered for us on the front of the switch, so it's easy to determine which port is which. And the numbering starts at 0. As we look at the front of the Cisco Catalyst 3750 series switch, the port in the upper left-hand corner is port number 1. And based on our port numbering format, let's think about what would this port number be. It's stack member 1. We know that the second number is a 0, and it's port number 1 on that switch. That means that if we were administering this collection of switches as a stack, or even just that bottom switch independently, that port identifier would be 1, the stack member number, /0, because it's always 0, /1, the port number on that switch. Let's do one more. Let's say that we are working with a stackwise stack of switches, and we're trying to configure a port on stack member 4. Well, the first number is going to be a 4. That's the switch number in the stack. The next number is going to be a 0, and the next number is going to be a 24. 4/0/24. Now, this is for a Cisco Catalyst 3750 series of switch. Let's next consider a Cisco Catalyst 2960 series of switch, and I would definitely want you to know this for the CCNA exam. Notice that here we only have 2 numbers. The first number is a 0, and the second number is the number of the port on this switch. Essentially, we've just eliminated the first number that we had for the Cisco Catalyst 3750 series of switch. We don't do stackwise with a 2960, so there's no need for that first number. The first number is going to be a 0, and then it's simply going to be the port number. Let's take a look at a couple of examples. We can see labeled very clearly on the switch that the port in the upper left-hand corner, that's port number 1, and that means our port identifier would be 0/1. As one more example, let's take a look at what appears to be port number 24 in this switch. The port identifier would simply be 0/24. Again, the port identifiers can vary widely from one switch model to another switch model, so please check the documentation for your switch.